In this episode of Office Hours, I'm going to elaborate some more on the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that we've used in the past to show how bundles are constructed in Salesforce CPQ. And today I thought it might be useful to start talking a little bit about another function in CPQ that's used often, but is not often documented in articles and blog posts and stuff, and that is the configuration attribute. Juanis, we recently worked a little bit on one of these scenarios, but this is a more generalized example. And the example is that I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I need to capture some more information while I'm configuring the sandwich. Some of my customers have allergies to gluten, and some of my customers have peanut allergies, neither of which is good. And the last thing that we want to do is feed a peanut butter jelly sandwich on wheat bread to someone who is gluten intolerant and has a peanut allergy. That would not be good for anyone. So what can we do? Let's revisit what we've done so far and talk about what we can do next. I'll create a quote on this opportunity that I made. I'll mark it as primary. Bugs Bunny is going to be my primary contact. The opportunity is Acme Corporation, and I'll save. The current state of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is very straightforward. I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I select that, which takes me to the product configuration screen. And I have my choices. I have two types of bread. I have two types of peanut butter. I have grape jelly, and I have subscriptions for the PB&J Club membership and support. But what am I supposed to do in a scenario where I have a customer who has a gluten allergy or a peanut allergy? Well, we need a couple of different things. At a fundamental level, we need another product to sell them. Perhaps we have gluten-free bread, and we're going to add, instead of peanut butter, we will add almond butter. Almond butter is really good as well. I like almond butter. Or you could add something completely different. Maybe you add honey, but in this case, let's keep it simple. So I need to change the structure of the bundle by having more products that I can sell to the customer. And I need to create a mechanism that I can capture whether or not this is, whether or not they have a peanut allergy, whether or not they have a gluten allergy. But then there's another step that we need to follow in this line of thinking, because if the customer has a gluten allergy, if they have a peanut allergy, we want to find a way to make it impossible to sell them something dangerous. This could apply in any number of other businesses as well. Maybe danger is not the concern. Maybe it's just a product mismatch. For example, if you are like me and you've been a tech nerd your whole life, you may have gotten Tiger Direct magazines back in the day and you skimmed through them thinking, oh my God, a 1 gigahertz processor, 1 gigabyte of hard drive space. How would I ever use that? That's so much storage. I couldn't possibly use it. You remember those conversations we used to have? Or the conversations we used to have about, oh, look at these people with their silly crackberries. They're on there all the time checking their email. My God, look at them on their phone so much. And now we've normalized spending 4 hours a day staring at your screen. I digress, per usual. So I want to capture those data points, gluten allergy, peanut allergy, and I want to hide the dangerous products. I don't even want to see them. I want to hide them and remove them from the page and deselect them so that I cannot pick the wrong thing. I can only do it right. We want to make it easy for the user to do it right and impossible for the user to do it wrong. How do we do that? I'm glad you asked. We're going to use configuration attributes to drive this function. Configuration attributes are ways that we gather information during configuration of the products so that the user can make the right choices, or so that we can validate that the user doesn't make the wrong choices, or we can alert the user that, hey, this might not be the best choice for you right now. Before we do that, I want to enhance this bundle a little bit more. I'm going to create a couple of new products, one for gluten-free bread and one for almond peanut butter. When I navigate back to my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we see in our related lists that we have several features already for peanut butter, bread, jelly, and subscriptions, and we have options for those different features. Remember that the features are the groupings of the options within the bundle. You can think of them as categories of options. And I'm going to add more options for those new products, but before I can do that, I have to have the new products. To simplify this and make it a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to take an existing product and clone it. In this case, I want another product that represents bread and one product that represents some sort of peanut butter. And I'm going to use this handy clone with related button. That clone with related button is not only going to create a clone of the product, but it's also going to create a clone of the related list, among them being the price book entry. We don't see that because for whatever reason, that doesn't show on this particular screen, but CPQ just copied the white bread, and I have down here, I have a price book entry for it that's $1. But anybody who's been to Whole Foods knows that gluten-free stuff is more expensive than regular stuff. So we are going to increase the price of this new product to $2. And we will further modify it to change the name. In this case, I'm calling this gluten-free bread. It's active. It is a component because it is sellable only inside of a bundle. We don't sell bread a la carte. If you want bread, I'm going to put a hyphen here. I feel better now. We got our gluten-free bread. And okay, my product descriptions are off, but I don't really care about that right now. This is a sandbox anyway. Then I'm going to copy my peanut butter. I'll use clone with related again because I don't feel like creating that price book entry. And now we have a copy of peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter. I scroll down, there's my price book entry. We'll do the same thing again. Sorry, those of you with allergies, you're probably used to this already. There is a conspiracy worldwide to make life more expensive for those with allergies. Sorry, it's just the way it is. If I get hate mail for saying that, I'm going to be very upset. It's a joke, folks. Some people lately have been taking what I say on LinkedIn entirely too seriously. And we all just need to relax. We need to relax a little bit. Not everything is offensive. The same thing is present here. I want to make sure that my product is active, that it is marked as a component, so it's not sellable a la carte, unless you really want your customers to have a big glop of almond butter in their hand. Hey, more power to you. Do what you want. I'll save that as well. Now I have my two new products. I'm ready to enhance my bundle with those two new products. I don't need any new features because one is bread and one belongs to the butter category, although what I might want to do is change the name of my feature to be a little more intuitive. Seeing almond butter in a peanut butter feature might be a little more confusing than seeing just butter or butters or nut butters. There we go. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter because the product feature name doesn't do anything other than show the words in the screen. But that's also important because it shows the words in the screen. So you want to make sure that your feature names are useful and helpful to your users. Next, I'll go ahead and create another product option record. In this case, I'm going to clone. I love cloning things in CPQ because it goes so much faster when you clone versus when you manually make things one after another. The clone button is here. It's just hidden in this list of unnecessary buttons that appears on every object in Salesforce. I could take the time to update my Lightning page to get rid of that, but I'll just complain about it instead. Here's my gluten-free bread. I want this to appear third in the list, and using the standard naming conventions of CPQ, I will put the number to 3. I still want a quantity of 2 if it's selected so that the user can have 2 slices of bread, and we'll save. The behaviors are generally the same. Then I'll go back to my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I will grab the creamy peanut butter down here. I'm going to clone this. The number is 30. And I'll replace creamy peanut butter with almond butter. I'm still keeping this in the feature of nut butters. And I will also make one change here. I don't want this one selected by default. I don't want 2 selected, just 1. There we go. We got our product options. Now you might be saying, but John, this is confusing. When I go back to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I see these options in the order of the records. You just created these. It's so unintuitive. Wouldn't it be great if I could just show them in the exact order that they were? Yeah, you could do that. One thing that I've done is I made a little formula field that I called order, and I'll put the feature number first, and I'll concatenate that with the option number, and then I'll add it to the related list, sort by that custom order field, and then you'll see everything in the order in which it's going to appear in the screen. A little admin thing you can do. Let's see what this looks like now. Ah, look at that. Great. This is about what I expected. It still works. I can save the configuration. I can reconfigure and change this to the gluten-free variety. But we find that some of our sellers don't always pay attention. I know that sounds completely foreign to everyone who's listening to this right now, that a seller would not pay attention when they're making a quote and that they would make a mistake. I know it's a very strange circumstance that never happens, ever, except that it happens all the time. Myself included. I'm not without sin here. So wouldn't it be great if we could control for that? Wouldn't it be great if I could say, hey, CPQ, this user or this customer has a gluten allergy and they have a peanut allergy. We need to make sure that we don't kill them in our restaurant. That would be pretty great. So let's go ahead and set that up. But if we want to do it systematically, I have to create the mechanisms for the system to know what to do. And for that, we're going to use our configuration attributes. These will make more sense here in just a little bit once I start to build them. But know that the configuration attribute is to create and use configuration attributes is a multi-step process. Let me pull up my, let's see here, ERD, Salesforce Revenue Cloud ERD. That's what I want. See, I've already created this. Thank you, past self. And I'm checking my ERD now. There you go. Garvin's Consulting. If you want to work with me, first of all, subscribe to my shit. Second of all, hire me as a consultant. I do good work. All right, now that's enough about me. Let's go back to our configuration attributes. You can ignore this global attribute stuff. We could talk about that some other time. But a configuration attribute hangs off of a product, and it is how we're going to gather this information. And I'm going to construct the configuration attribute. To construct a configuration attribute and use it in a product rule, I need to do some things. This is a product rule. This is kind of the anatomy of a product rule right here. We're going to build a product rule that during configuration of the bundle will select or hide certain options based on the inputs they receive from the user. Inputs, outputs. That's all this stuff is. I'm oversimplifying, but you get the idea. For this product rule to work, I need to gather information with a configuration attribute. And that is going to leverage a field on the product option that has a corresponding twin field over on the quote line. So I could pass that information back and forth and effectively save it. All right. To create this configuration attribute and use it, I need to do three things. Number one, I need to create product option field. Then I need to create a quote line field. Then I need to create configuration attribute record. But really, there's another step in between here. And in between this step, if the I'll need to update a pick list value as well. So let me go ahead and just delete that. No, it'll be faster if I just change it. I need to update target field pick list. And then I need to create configuration attribute. All right. So this is our four-step process to creating a configuration attribute that is usable by a product rule. If you're not quite following along, that's totally fine. We'll go through this process now. Any questions so far? Anything that I'm missing? It should become clearer as I go. Step one, create a product option field. This gets into the idea of twin fields, which I have outlined here in the flow chart. If you want this flow chart, go ahead and email me, john.garvins@garvinsconsulting.com, or you can go to garvinsconsulting.com and put your name in the form and say, please give me access to your Lucid chart. It's the most beautiful flow chart I've ever seen. You're my hero for creating it. Go ahead and do that. But this is where this comes into play. We have twin field relationships here between the configuration attribute, product option, and the quote line. Visually, here are product option records. And when we save this and go into the quote line editor, we are looking at quote line records. The twin field function in Salesforce CPQ allows data to go back and forth between these two objects and the associated records as long as two things are true. Number one, that the field API names of the fields in question are an exact match with each other. Exact. Which means that you cannot twin field a standard field to a custom field. You cannot twin a managed package field to a custom field that I've created because of the namespace in the case of the managed package field and because of no __ C in the case of the standard field. The exact match of the field API names is a key here. It can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, but overall it works pretty well. And I think twin fields is one of the most underrated features of Salesforce CPQ. It's so handy. I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. There are, in the new Revenue Cloud product, there are ways to do this. This is with context definitions and mappings and things like this, but we'll get into new Revenue Cloud stuff in the future. There are good videos out there that are starting to get created by people. You can Google around for those. Maybe I'll even feature some of them here on this show if they want to. I guess maybe this is a show. Is this a show? I think this is a show. It's kind of like a show. whatever.
You stream it, you subscribe to it.
I
It's a
mean,
show.
all right, I'll buy it. Other people call it a podcast, so maybe it's a podcast too. Who the hell knows what this is? It's me talking at a camera for a while. Um, I'm a dude on the internet with an opinion. Look at me. Look at me go. I'm so unique. All right. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do is create a field in the background here that's going to capture that information and I'm going to send it downstream to the quote line. And the way I'm going to
Mhm.
capture the information is with a configuration attribute. The configuration attribute is the mechanism that captures the input that I can then use to drive downstream processes, pass the data downstream to other objects, and so on. We need to create the configuration attribute, but there are dependencies here, and that's where we go back to the happy little flow chart that I made here. We're going to create an option field, then we're going to create quote line field, and then we're going to create twin uh, uh, target. We're going to update a pick list, and then we'll finally create our records. And at that point, I'll be ready. And with as long-winded as I am, I'm going to probably have to do that in the next office hours, but that's fine. People seem to like watching these. They find them helpful. If you do, great. Feel free to send me other ideas of things you'd like me to discuss. Um, unless it's hate mail, send all hate mail to I need a hate mail email address. I should make one. That would be funny. Hate mail. Send it to hate mail at garvinsconsulting.com and I will read it and I will laugh. If you get me to cry, then I will give you a prize because it takes a lot to troll me. Anyway, I'm going to update my product options now. A quick way to get there, you can go to a product option record and then you can edit the object, or you can go through the setup, through the object manager, search for your product option, and then we go there. However you get there, we want to go to the product option object to the fields and relationships where we're going to create two fields because we're trying to capture two specific allergies. The first allergy we're going to capture is the peanut allergy, and then we're going to do the gluten allergy. I'm going to use a checkbox for this. Checkboxes are simple. They either have the allergy or they don't. I understand that there are varying degrees of allergies, but for our sake, I don't care about those gradations. You either have the allergy or you don't have the allergy. That's Boolean. It's a checkbox. I like checkboxes. I'm a simple person. All right, and this is for our peanut allergy. By default, it is unchecked because most people do not have peanut allergies, despite what elementary schools would have you believe. And we'll navigate through this. We'll talk about security permissions in another session. You could choose to not include those in the profiles and use permission sets instead. That is a choice you can make as the administrator. I'm going to use the same mechanism, a checkbox for the gluten allergy as well. Now, my twin fields exist on, or my fields exist on the product option, but I want the twin field function to exist for two reasons. Number one, I want to pass this data downstream to the quote line so I can save this information. And then later I can report on, hey, how many gluten-free sandwiches did we sell last year? We could send it to the order fulfillment system and say, hey, ship a gluten-free sandwich. We could do any number of things with this. But there's also a nice nuance here as well. If I create this checkbox on the product option object, I'm not able to edit it unless it's got a corresponding twin field. I don't know if that's intentional or unintentional, but it is in the documentation. You could look it up. So I want to have both of these fields exist on both the product option and on the quote line records. From the object manager, I'll go to the quote line. Fields and relationships, and I'm going to make the same two fields again. Peanut allergy, make sure you spell these things correctly. You may want to double check your field API names when you're done, because if they are not an exact match, it will not go. It will not work. It will not flow. A common mistake. Why isn't my twin field working? Because it's not a twin field. But the data types are the same. Aha! But you spelled them differently. Let's revisit the flowchart. I created my product option fields. I created my quote line fields. Now I need to update the target pick list field. I should probably add here on config on the configuration attribute. I have my twin fields. They're the same in both. Allergy. Here we go. I need to add these to the target field pick list field on the configuration attribute object. Let me explain. Sometimes we create fields on product options and quote lines because we want to preset values. We want to configure things behind the scenes. Maybe we're trying to reuse the same product and have a different attribute value. Maybe we're trying to track something behind the scenes that we really don't care about from a user perspective, but it's used for pricing or what have you. But sometimes we want to use it as part of this input process with configuration attributes to drive other functions like product rules or something else. The configuration attribute is how the user interacts with that field on the product option and the quote line to make sure this all works. Here's my configuration attribute, object, fields and relationships. I'm going to go down here to the target field pick list, and this is where, I don't know if we've done this yet. We're going to add field API names to a pick list. Have we done this yet, Wannes?
I don't know if we've done it on the video. We've done it many times
Working
together.
together? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you're anything like me, when I was first getting into CPQ, this feels dirty. This feels weird. What the hell am I doing? I'm adding field API names to a pick list. This is so awkward.
Exactly.
And it still kind of feels weird sometimes. Like, oh God, here we go again. What's happening is that when CPQ creates this page, what's happening is that this page that I'm looking at right now is a virtual representation of the data of the records that are in the database. What CPQ is doing is it's looking at the feature records on the peanut butter and jelly sandwich record and saying, ah, the name is bread, the name is nut butters, the name is jelly, the name is subscriptions, and it's printing that on the screen. It knows that these three product option records are in this, all look up to the same feature record, and the UI is grouping like items together. And the number field where I numbered 10, 20, and 30, that is determining the order in which these product options are showing within the features. And on the feature, the number field is showing the order in which the features appear on this configuration screen. There are field sets that contain fields, quantity, product code, product name, description, and unit price that are pulling into this page as well. So this page is being dynamically constructed based on the current shape of the data in the system, which is pretty cool. And it's doing that in real time. If I go back and I change nut butters back to peanut butter and I regenerate this whole same screen, that will change. If I change the fields that are present in the field set, the order of the fields or the presence of the fields will also change. Price rules work in the same way. Product rules work in the same way. On the client side, in my browser, on over not on the database somewhere, but this is getting constructed in real time and being used in real time. Uh, where is it going with this? Ah, yes. So how does it know which fields to pull in the case of a configuration attribute? The target field. When I show two checkboxes at the top of this screen, CPQ knows what the name of the field is and what type of data it is to show that in the visualization based on what it finds at a certain field API name. I'm going to add these to my configuration attribute record type as well. This is a part that people forget. I need to add these picked list values to the configuration attribute record type. We'll worry about global attributes on another call. Now I have my field API names. There is no controlling field here. I have now completed the third step of my 3 steps. I made the fields on the option object. I made the fields on the quote line object. I added the target fields to the pick list on the configuration attribute. And now I'm ready to create my records. Going back to my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we'll go to the related list because, again, the configuration attribute is an enhancement to this bundle. Here's the ERD again. My product has configuration attributes. My product has features. My product has options. Here are my configuration attributes down here. And you can rearrange these related lists as much as you want. Do whatever you want. When given the choice to select a new configuration attribute, I'm going to pick the configuration attribute record type. And I will call this peanut allergy. Well, let's do gluten allergy. Since bread is first, I'm going to do gluten allergy. My target field is the gluten allergy field on the product option object. The row order. This is vertically. Column order is horizontal. 1, 2, 3 is left, center, right. And the position is at the top. I don't want the, generally I leave it the position of an attribute at the top because if it's at the bottom, I might have to scroll. And if I have to scroll, I'm going to forget stuff. And then we can associate this with a given feature if we wanted to do that. And we can apply immediately. Now, apply immediately is something I'm going to select now because it's going to drive functionality later. When I check this box, when I uncheck this box, I'm going to do certain things. If you wanted, you could associate it specifically to the bread feature, for example. Or if on the UI side of things, you wanted to see everything up at the top, you could leave the feature null. But you have that choice. For now, I'm going to leave this the way it is, and I'm going to create a second configuration attribute for peanut allergy. Same thing, I choose my record type, peanut allergy, peanut allergy. The row order is still 10. It's the first row, and the column order is 2. I want this to be in the center. Apply immediately will also be true here. Now we return to the quote. We see no configuration attributes at the top. I need to regenerate. It's going to dynamically, oh, no. Okay. I gotta get rid of this, add the product again. I might have to exit all the way out. Oh, I have to exit all the way out. Okay. Because CPU has already cached those things in memory, you need to go out and go all the way back in. Another common troubleshooting thing. Some changes will take effect immediately. Others you need to leave and then come back in. And now we see our gluten allergy. And because I selected apply immediately, if I check this box, you see the little spinny thing. Nothing happens. Well, nothing happens because we haven't given it a rule to execute yet. Well, we now have a mechanism to gather information about allergies and then apply changes. Now, to show you how that feature association works, let me redo this. Gluten allergy, that's a bread thing. And the peanut allergy, that is a nut butters thing. All right, let's exit out of here. We'll go back into the quote again. Add products, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And now the location of our attributes has changed. I have a gluten allergy over here. And I have nut butters down here, or peanut allergy down here. It's in the center because my column is set to 2, so it's putting it in the center of the screen, which looks kind of silly. I also don't think it looks that great here, and it's easy to miss. So I'm going to put them back at the top where they were. Oops. But the choice is yours. It's your org. Do whatever you want. Just don't put triggers or flows on the quote line. And if you have process builder on the quote line or workflow rules on the quote line,
You're giving me nightmares, John. You're giving me nightmares.
this stuff nightmares are made of, my friend. I recently saw in the Trailblazer community someone who apparently runs their own consulting shop. They're apparently a CPQ specialist, and they were asking about hey, their flow wasn't working, and they were doing something with renewals and amendments and some sort of price update or something like this. I'm just thinking, oh my God. You're supposed to be the advisor in this situation, and you're doing the cardinal sin, and you're posting about it publicly, asking, oh, geez, this is not good. It's probably the number one cause of poor performance and your consultant's frustration. All right, so there you go. Anyway, that's how it works. But wouldn't it be great if this did something? That would be exciting. So we're going to make these attributes do something. Now, what's it going to do? We're going to update fields? Are we going to manage records? Well, we're going to manage records. We are going to select or deselect. We're going to hide. We're going to show different records based on the value of each of these configuration attributes. When gluten allergy is true, I want to hide and remove from the screen the white bread and the wheat bread, and I want to show only that gluten-free bread. And when it is false, I want it to perhaps show all of them. With the peanut allergy, if, or maybe I guess in that case, I'm always showing gluten-free, and I always want to show almond butter. But if it's a peanut allergy, I want to hide and remove the peanut butter for sure, because that's going to cause a big problem. How do I do that? Well, if you're managing and manipulating records, you use product rules. If you're updating field values within those records, you use price rules. You do not use flows and triggers to update quote line data.
Repeat all of that again. That is the most important information.
For the people in the back, we're going to use price rules to update fields on quote lines. Or if you got some crazy stuff, a quote calculator plugin, which is written with JavaScript, and we'll talk about that some other time. But if you are updating fields on quote lines, you will use price rules. You will not use flows. You will not use triggers. You will not use workflow field updates. You will not use process builder. You can't create new process builder or workflow uh, functions anymore anyway. But if you have some in there, they're probably causing problems. A quick way to know if you have an issue with core automation on a quote line with CPQ is the answer to one question. Does the pricing work, but only if you click quick save or save? If you have to click quick save or save for your stuff to work, well, that's a bad solution. I should be able to just click calculate. I should be able to add a product and everything's right. If I have to click calculate more than once, if I have to click calculate and then quick save, if I have to click calculate and save 5 times in order for this thing to calculate right, it's a bad solution because there's no way for us to guarantee that the user is going to click the right thing the right number of times. That's why it has to be one shot, one kill, so to speak. And you add the product to the quote and everything's right. Because adding a product to a quote as a quote line triggers calculation as well. It's the same thing as clicking calculate. You do not have to add the product and then click calculate and then click sit. No, 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 no. That's you can. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's overkill. Anyway, let's talk about how to do this. So we are trying to hide white bread and wheat bread when gluten allergy is true. That's what we're going to do. We'll do that first. I'm going to use product rules for this because I'm manipulating records. I like to pin the all products rules list view, and we are going to use a product rule name. Now, quick naming convention thing. If you're like me and you like very neat, organized, precise data and descriptions to show exactly what this thing is doing and be helpful as an administrator, I'm going to name this with the type. It's a selection rule. And this is to, this will be hide, has gluten allergy. How about that? Has gluten allergy. Conditions met, all. Scope. Scope is very important, both as a mouthwash and as a CPQ function. Nobody wants bad breath, and we want to make sure that our product rule runs where we want it to run. In this case, the scope will be product. And the reason the scope is product is because we want this rule to run in product configuration. If I want a product rule to run against the quote lines, then I will use quote, as in quote line editor. So the scope cues you in to where the specific function happens. In product configuration, we want this to run. The evaluation events, we want this to be always when the records load, when I edit the records, and when I save the records, I want this to run. We'll make this rule active. Message is unnecessary because it's a selection rule. The evaluation order we'll say is 10. We're going to ignore the lookup query information. All right, we have a product rule, has gluten allergy. In order to test for this, I need to have conditions, and then I need to take action based on the conditions. But before I do that, I want to make an association. When a product rule exists with the scope of product, I must associate the product rule to the relevant products. And the relevant products are those products that are bundles that will use this configuration, this product rule. To make that association and build a bridge, I need what's called a configuration rule right here, this guy. The configuration rule is a bridge that connects the dots between a product rule and the product, update my ERD, and the product that uses said product rule. And in this case, I'm going to make an active configuration rule that associates the peanut butter and jelly sandwich to this product rule. Save. Now, this rule will be considered anytime I'm configuring the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's not necessarily the same as it will run every time, but it tells CPQ, hey, when you got this bundle, check out this rule. But CPQ needs to know when to act, and it knows when to act based on two things. Number one, the evaluation event, and number two, the conditions. To create a condition, we'll click New, and we're going to test an object. Now, if you recall, we have a scope of product, which means this product rule is for the product configuration screen, which means we're talking about product options. And within that, I need to test the field isn't there. How do I know gluten allergy, peanut allergy? Oh, I have to add field API names to the pick list again. We did it on the configuration attribute for the UI so that it knows which field to put on the page. Now we're going to do it to know which field to test. Two different functions, two different areas, two different pick lists. The same principle applies though. We are going to, I'm going to go to the setup, to the object manager option. Copy paste is your friend here. In the product option, I'm going to find my allergy fields. Gluten allergy, peanut allergy. There we go. And I'm going to add those to the tested field on the error condition object. Gee, John, why is it called the error condition? Hey, I'm glad you asked, stranger on the internet. It's called the error condition object because, I don't know. The stuff of legend says that the very first type of product rule that existed was a validation product rule. And when you are testing for validations, you're testing for errors. Therefore, these are the error conditions. And then later that was enhanced to add selection rules and other types of rules. I don't know if that's BS, if that's hearsay or whatever, but that's what I heard. Feel free to fact check me if you want. I always encourage people to do that because if I'm wrong, I want to know about it. Most of my friends will not hesitate for a single moment to tell me that they think I'm wrong. And that's why they're my friends. You've told me I'm wrong before once, and you've been right.
I appreciate that affirmation.
Everybody likes to be right.
I've learned a lot, not only from you, but from previous people that I've worked with. And I'm confident in the things I know, and I'm confident in the things I don't know.
We all know far less than we think we do. All right. Following the same methodology, the same rationale, I'm testing a field on the error condition. I'm testing a field for a value. The value that I find is going to determine what happens based on that value. Now, in this case, on the error condition, I also have I have a controlling field here too, the tested object. Note, I can add values, I can add field API names to the tested field pick lists on this error condition object. But in CPQ, anywhere you see tested object or object, You cannot change objects. You can add more picklist values, but it'll mean nothing. CPQ will have no idea what you're talking about. But in this case, it does know that product options exist. It knows what to do with them. And now it knows that these two fields are going to be included. Come on. There we go. When I go back to my product rule over here, I'm going to refresh the page so that all of the records and the metadata can reload. And then when I click new, test object, product option, now I see gluten allergy. So gluten allergy, I have three ways of testing things. I can test an object field combination, in this case, product option, gluten allergy. I can test for, actually, I did this wrong. I made a mistake, and I'll show you what my mistake was and how to fix it in just a second. We can test for a specific attribute. We could test for a variable. In this case, what I'm actually going to do is go back here and update this test object. Change. I set the wrong values. I'm such a rookie. Fear not, friends. We all make mistakes all the time. It's fine. You're fine. I go to Dreamforce and people literally come up to me and go, "Oh, you're the CPQ guy," like I'm some sort of Salesforce celebrity or CPQ celebrity or whatever. And I make mistakes in this shit too. You just saw it. So really what I wanted to do was associate these with the configuration attribute picklist value because that's the thing that I'm actually manipulating and testing is the configuration attribute in this bundle. So see, when you make a mistake, it's fine. You can say, this is fine. The CPQ guy himself made the same type of mistake. It doesn't matter. Go back and fix it. Move on. It's fine. You can also swear loudly. That's allowed too. Okay, so now gluten allergy. And when that value equals true, I have three things I can test: a field on an object, an attribute, a variable. I have an operator. This filter type tells me which one of these two fields am I pointing to. There are system validations to prevent you from doing the wrong thing. When gluten allergy is true, I'm going to do something. I'm going to uh, hide and remove the crunchy peanut butter. And I'm going to hide and remove the creamy peanut butter. When I'm configuring the peanut butter and jelly sandwich bundle, and the user updates the configuration attribute for the gluten allergy to be true, then I'm going to hide from the page layout and remove, aka deselect, crunchy peanut butter and creamy peanut butter. You could go one step further and also say, and I want to add the gluten-free bread. Wait, what was I doing? I was doing gluten allergy. Damn it, I made another mistake. It's been a long week. Look at that. Has a gluten allergy. Why do I care about peanut butter? I don't know, folks. You should probably not hire me as your consultant. Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing. White bread. Save.
Now, we're not gonna tolerate any of that deprecation, self-deprecation.
Why do I do these on Fridays? So that is a good question. Maybe I should move these to a different day of the week, but my brain is fresh and not a whole pile of mush from doing this stuff for a whole week and then trying to present on it.
Because it's my one free day of the week and it's the only time I can join.
I mean, that's pretty much why I do it too. All right, and then I'm going to add the gluten-free bread. There we go. Now, I don't, here's when the type includes the word add. So add, enable an ad, show an ad. Also check the required checkbox. That's what I was taught. I don't know if that's actually true, but it's what I do as a force of habit. It seems redundant, but it's CPQ. So what can you do? Now let's test it out. My rule is constructed. See? And it's all because I talked out loud what that rule was supposed to do that I caught my issue. Talking out loud can be very useful in troubleshooting. So now I know that, oops, now I know that when I am in product configuration, regardless of the events, and I'm configuring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I update the gluten allergy configuration attribute to be true, then I'm going to look at my gluten stuff. I'm going to hide my gluten, and I'm going to show my non-gluten. When I do this in CPQ, that should be about right. And I select, I see everything. Great. But I have a gluten allergy. Product rule runs. It hides what I'm not supposed to see. It selects the gluten-free. Fantastic. What if I uncheck it? Nothing happens. Why not? Because I don't have a counter rule, which is what we're going to create in the next episode of Salesforce Revenue Cloud Office Hours. This has been about an hour on the dot. My name is John Garvins. You should hire me as a consultant, despite the fact that I make obvious mistakes in Salesforce CPQ, because you just spent an hour watching this thing. Kudos to you. Um, but if you do have questions about this, feel free to let me know. You can message me on the homepage of my website, garvinsconsulting.com. Subscribe to my shit. And then feel free to send any questions my way, other things you want me to talk about. Otherwise, next time we'll just keep building out this particular scenario because I'm sure there's other people out there that need to know how this works. And with that, have a good weekend.